Hello and welcome to Post, the channel where we discuss all things hockey and all teams. Welcome back to the set. Welcome back to Canada. You just spent 3 weeks across the ocean.
Pretty well.
The UK.
Yesterday I was in London, England.
Yes, you were.
Today I am in Post headquarters.
Wow. Well,
Whoa.
We'll talk about your trip probably in an upcoming podcast on the second channel. So if you want to hear all about his 3-week trip over there, please subscribe to our second channel, More Post to Post.
Yeah.
Now on to the serious business at hand. The St. Louis Blues won the Stanley Cup.
Sweet. I'm so happy.
Are you shocked?
Not shocked, but pleasantly surprised.
I'm not shocked that they won, but I'm shocked that they won in Boston in Game 7.
I think that's it. I think that St. Louis should have won it in 6 games.
Yep, I agree.
And I only was able to see small highlight packages where I was. I left for my trip the day before the series started, and I got back the day after it ended.
Yeah.
And I thought when St. Louis really let it go in Game 6, I was really worried.
Yeah, I was scared. I thought it was over, to be honest.
Yeah.
Everyone knows how good of a road team that St. Louis is, so maybe it's not that big of a surprise that they won on the road, but still, when Game 6, Stanley Cup final, you're technically the underdog, you're at home, you have a chance to win the Stanley Cup, and you don't do it, it's just so deflating. So
Really?
But I think I tweeted this out yesterday or the day before. St. Louis has so much to be proud of, but the Bruins have nothing to be ashamed of. Like, what a tremendous season by Boston.
Fantastic.
There's so many great, obviously there's a lot of great storylines in St. Louis, but if you look at Boston, there's so many great storylines there as well. Yachara getting a year older, still going to continue to play, not having to face Tampa Bay and still dominating the entire Eastern Conference. And the depth on Boston is pretty tremendous. So there's a lot of good storylines for Boston. So there's nothing to be ashamed of. It sucks that you lose in Game 7, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into Game 7 in the series. But I mean, obviously I'm not a huge fan of Boston, but there's definitely storylines on Boston that I was cheering for, like Halak. I'd love to see Halak get a cup, and I like DeBrusk, and all kinds of good ones. But obviously I'm pleased that St. Louis won.
Yeah, I wouldn't be cheering for Boston probably under any circumstances, mainly because it's a team that I've grown up with on the other side of Boston, being a Montreal fan. So, but that all said, I have a great deal of respect for Boston. I think their coaching change was a huge positive influence.
Absolutely.
And it's been a fantastic growth in that team. They've kept their core together. Their big guys are still producing and producing well.
Not so much this series.
Not this series necessarily, but they've had a really good run of a good couple of years, and they're still around. They have a core.
Absolutely.
And they have a core that'll be back next year and almost as good as they were this year.
I think they'll be just as good next year as they were this year. If anything, they might be better because of the depth and experience that the experience that they've gotten in these playoffs and the proof of the depth on the team, that they're only going to get better. So
and they'll be driven by this deep disappointment.
Absolutely.
They'll see it this way. I don't know if it's true, but they'll see it that they've let their fans down in their own rink.
Yep.
In Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. That's all you pray for. That's all you dream about when you're growing up. If you're growing up as a hockey player, is a chance to win the Stanley Cup in Game 7, and you've got a chance to do it at home in front of your fans. Mm-hmm. It's the greatest thing ever, and then it doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I feel bad for some of them, like Jason. Obviously, feel really bad for Jason. Joey, really bad for Joey.
Yep.
But on the other side of the coin, we got Brittany, who actually lives in St. Louis, and cheers for them. So I'm super happy for her. And I don't feel that bad for Boston. 2011 wasn't that long ago, so at least probably anyone who's watching this channel and is a Boston fan remembers 2011 and what it's like to witness your favorite team win the Stanley Cup in person. That's never happened to me. The last time the Montreal Canadiens won the Stanley Cup, I was, I don't know, the size of a toaster or something like that. So I
you were 7 years old.
Whatever.
You were asleep on the couch. I tried to keep you awake.
Well, and the point is, I didn't see it.
You didn't see it.
Didn't see it happen.
You let me down.
Yep. I've never experienced that. So St. Louis Blues. There are fans that were born when the St. Louis Blues were created, who are now witnessing their team, witnessing the team win for the first time, and they're in their, I don't know, 50s, 40s, 30s, late 40s.
St. Louis is 52 years old.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's a long time.
it's over half a century.
That's almost as old as you.
Oh, that hurt.
So, like,
That hurt.
not that you're old, but I mean,
Well, you just said I am.
okay, you're old.
You just talked about this long drought
Yeah, you're
of
right.
no Stanley Cups, and then you compare that to me.
Yeah.
Look, I feel bad enough. It's been 26 years since my team won the Cup.
Yes.
And so I feel a bit bad for Boston, but not really bad. I feel more bad for me.
That's
26.
half of St. Louis.
Yeah.
Like, and we think it's a long time for Montreal. Imagine how they feel. So imagine the joy and excitement of what's going on in St. Louis right now. So that's pretty special.
In my first 30 years, my team won the Cup 12 times.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
After that, they've won it once.
Unacceptable.
Unacceptable. Completely unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
Fix that.
Anyways, a couple of reasons why this series went down the way that it did. I think the biggest reason for St. Louis, you could talk about Jordan Binnington all you want. He was unbelievable, especially in Game 7.
Game 7.
But for me, what won St. Louis the Cup was defense. Just straight up, old school defense. It's the reason that the Boston Bruins won in 2011. They had one of the best defensive teams of all time. St. Louis played the same kind of style of hockey, dump and chase, hard hitting, clogging up the neutral zone, blocking a ton of shots. So they really put a clinic on defensive hockey out there. And to me, that's what won them this Cup. It's not necessarily exciting hockey to watch, but it's effective hockey if you can do it right. And on the Boston side of things, you have a bit of a lack of production from their top six. Bergeron and Marchand and Krejci, kind of not really anywhere to be seen. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if did you watch the highlights from Game 7?
I did. You were lucky, or you were smart enough and good enough to keep it on the PVR. And so what I did when I got up this morning, I'm trying to reset my body clock to North American time, I watched most of the game this morning, albeit with some skip aheads and fast forwards, but I paused for each goal and watched the couple of minutes of play before and after each of those goals. And I watched some of the intermission stuff where they did the analysis. So I have a pretty good sense of how the game went down.
So on the second goal, late in the second, Boston took that line change there at the end, and it was Marchand. And it was
Marchand. He'd
Bergeron.
been on the ice for over a minute at that point. Mm-hmm. He wanted off, but then he saw Jaden Schwartz coming down and decided to back up and try to stop. He couldn't do anything with him. Schwartz went right on by, and Marchand still then went to the bench. Which, well, what else is he going to do now? He's totally out of the game.
Well, I mean, I don't.
He's out of the play.
No, I don't. I disagree. I think
he's out.
I think something could have been done. I just don't understand why you would take a line change with 14 seconds left. Like, you're an elite athlete. You're telling me that you can't play an extra 14 seconds, and because even if you're dead tired, that 14 seconds of dead tired is way better than wasting 10 seconds of going to the bench and someone else coming on. And there's no way in 4 seconds the player's going to get from the bench all the way down to, like, nope.
No, I get that, and I don't disagree with that. But I think the wrong decision was made maybe 30 seconds before the 14 seconds left.
Okay.
You don't stay on the ice to the extent that you get into that place where you're totally bagged.
Okay.
You get off the ice 30 seconds before that, especially if your team has possession and has the offensive zone presence in the St. Louis's end. That's when you make your change, even if you think when you're greedy and you're individualistic and you think you're going to go in there and save the day, you stay on the ice. And then the tide turns, and it was too late. With 14 seconds to go, the decision time was 30 seconds to go, 35, 40 seconds to go.
So you're saying he's still at fault?
Absolutely.
Just in a different...
Absolutely.
Okay.
It was a bad decision not made with 14 seconds left. It was made with 35 seconds left to knock it off the ice then.
Boom.
Boom.
All right.
Yeah.
And Bergeron, we are both big fans of him.
Totally.
But in the face-off circle, more so in the last half of these playoffs, wasn't really that big of a factor. It just wasn't that typical face-off genius that we've seen his entire career. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if he's injured. He was kind of nursing his groin a little bit in one of those games. But yeah, it was a bit, I don't know, it was very uncharacteristic of him in the face-off circle. And then you have players like Ryan O'Reilly, who was everywhere on the ice and doing incredible things.
Yeah.
200 feet everywhere. He won the big trophy.
Conn Smythe?
Before he won the biggest trophy. So he had a pretty good night. What did you think about that decision for him to be the Conn Smythe winner? Because there's a bit of controversy of who should win that.
Yeah, it's funny, when just before Gary announced the winning player of the Conn Smythe, the camera was zooming in on Binnington and zooming in on O'Reilly. For the most part, those two, almost as if to say it's probably going to be one of these two guys. I think it's hard to give the Conn Smythe to Binnington based on the stinker game that he had.
Yeah, and he had a stinker game earlier in the series as well.
He did. And so he's not been pristine all the way through. In a way now, I look back and I like the fact that he played poorly enough that they had to pull him, because Jake actually got in the game and he wasn't just riding the pine the whole series.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see Jake Allen get in the hockey game even for a little while. That way, when he lifts the cup up, he actually, even though they lost the game he was in, he can actually say that he played.
He made
in
some
the series.
saves in the finals, and yeah,
because really he was the guy until Binnington showed up, and if Binnington wasn't there, is Jake Allen the guy that carries them into the finals and wins the cup?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. But again, magic can happen. So I would have held out eternal hope for that. But
so what's that mean for Jake Allen? Is he moving on?
I don't know. There's been media now in the last 18 hours or so where the St. Louis management has said Binnington's in for a big pay hike.
I would say so.
Yeah. So, and not only is it a pay hike, but is it a hierarchical shift? Binnington obviously is the starter, regardless of who's making how much money. Binnington will be making more than Allen probably as of July 1st or early in the new year, whenever, the new season.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Is if Jake Allen has a talk with the management, with the GM, and says, "Look, I know that I've been the guy for the last few years, and I'm not the guy now, and I'm content with that. I'm happy to be a really good backup to Binnington. Let's go for it."
Yeah, but you're still paying Allen like $5.5 million or whatever he's getting.
Someone's got to pay him.
Someone's got to pay him. I think he's going somewhere. I think he gets
really.
I think he gets traded.
Who takes him? Who takes him in his fragile state that he is at that kind of money? Is St. Louis going to have to subsidize that?
I don't
trade?
know, like New Jersey or.
What about Florida with Luongo
I was thinking Florida, like a Sanisco's team. Maybe Columbus if Bobrovsky goes away.
Yeah, that's true.
Someone like that. I'd like to see him stay in St. Louis, but I don't think he's going to stay. So we'll see. There's already been a trade actually today. We'll talk about that in the podcast this weekend. But there's already been some moves, so this could happen sooner rather than later. So we'll actually get to see Jake Allen in person when he brings the cup to Fredericton. So we're going to make the trip over there to see that. At least I am. I don't know if you are.
It depends when it is.
It should be late summer because he's the least valuable person on the roster because he was the backup goalie. So he'll probably get the cup last, which means probably early September, maybe late August, something like that.
Right.
So I'm definitely going to make the trip over.
And if I can get the day off, or if it's on a weekend day, and it's convenient travel-wise, I would go too.
Yeah, so we'll watch that parade.
Yep.
I'll definitely film a video of that whole experience, be like a vlog-style video.
Cool.
We'll release it on the channel, obviously, and that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Game 7, I like Game 7 for a few different reasons, the way it played out. First off, it wasn't a cliffhanger. As much as I like things to be close and be competitive, I don't like a Game 7 Cup championship deciding game to be decided on a weird bounce or an oddball ref call.
A hand pass or a reviewed play or
something like that, or going to overtime with off a skate, or I didn't want that to happen.
Yes.
So it was decisive. St. Louis actually got up 4-0 before Boston pulled the goalie with a couple of minutes left and got one. But really from around 12 minutes left in the third to the end of the game, St. Louis basically knew that they were going to win this game.
Mm-hmm.
And what a relief for all the players and all the fans to not only win the thing, but know ahead of time that you're going to win it. So you're not overcome with suspense.
Yeah.
You're just overcome with joy, and you get minutes and minutes and minutes of being able to experience that
You're
joy.
just waiting to be able to like visually explode basically in cheer. So yeah,
it's a much nicer build-up for the winning side. For the losing side, it's very painful.
Yeah.
I thought Boston was very classy in the handshake line.
Yep.
I thought that, they understood. And I think the Boston fans, I saw a lot of them afterwards. They stuck around.
I was going to mention that. Like that was super classy of them to stick around on the ice. So they watched the whole celebration. Basically, they were cheering, taking pictures.
They were booing Bettman like they're supposed to.
Yeah, booing Bettman like they're supposed to. Good job, Boston fans.
There's even a few middle fingers in behind amongst the fans when Bettman was.
So yeah, definitely round of applause for that, Boston fans.
Well done. And they stuck around, and I saw some really, just from some of the Boston fans I know, some very, very nice social media posts about Leila.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And how affected the whole fan base of the NHL was by her story, and how the Boston fans bought into that as well. And even she responded that way in giving an interview to St. Louis television just after the game ended, from standing on the ice itself, along with Parayko. She talked about how much support she's received, not only from the St. Louis market area, but from all the team's fans across the league, and including in Boston.
Yeah, it's one of the first things she said was that she just wanted to thank fans from every team. Like, 'cause she's gotten support from every single team's fans, and that meant a lot to her. That's a pretty mature answer for a young girl to give, and it is the truth. And it is
Absolutely.
The fans around the league have been phenomenal to her, and it's amazing that she was there and that she was able to come on the ice afterwards. It's just a tremendous story. Obviously, she's had a very tough life as of recently, a pretty big emotional roller coaster for her, not only with her life. Her mom is obviously taken this pretty hard and stuff and has been through the ringers a little bit, but also the emotional roller coaster of the team and stuff. And she said when she got sick, when she was in the hospital, or when she was really getting bad, is when the Blues started to play really well.
She went in for the bone marrow transplant right around the same time as the team started coming out of the basement.
Yeah. And so they were in this weird parallel, and all the, I don't know, it sounds a little bit morbid, but all the life being sucked out of her was given to the Blues a little bit. Like, she was transferring her life to them a little bit. So it's good that she was healthy enough to go travel to Boston and stuff. It's an amazing story. I don't know what her long-term outlook is. I don't know. I don't even know if they've publicly said that. I'm not familiar with that, whatever disease she has or specific.
It's extremely rare.
Yeah, I know it's really rare. It's like WH whatever or something like that. But it's really unfortunate. I hope she gets better and she makes a full recovery if that's possible. Again, I don't know, but just definitely props to the Boston fans and fans around the league for being super classy regarding her and St. Louis.
And I think the way the game played out, it allowed them to be that way. The fans weren't, in the last 10 minutes, the Boston fans weren't feeling as if they'd been robbed or something. Like, there wasn't some big event. They knew as well. They began to prepare themselves to be classy, to be gracious in defeat. Boston had some acknowledged mistakes on the ice that made it clear where the finger could point as to why the team didn't win that game. Mm-hmm. We had the Marchand bad line change or non-change. We had, I think it was maybe the third goal, where I forget who it is going in the corner, but McAvoy's going into the corner with him and then changes at the last second and skates over into the slot to cover somebody else. And whoever it was in the corner was all by himself, made the pass, and it's in the net.
Yep.
So McAvoy took the wrong guy there in that play, and I forget the mechanics of it. I watched it this morning. I was
just a lot of little decisions that were made incorrectly.
Yeah, but at least it's players' decisions, good or bad, that you can point to here, and here as to why Boston didn't win. If you think at the end of the first period, St. Louis had only 4 shots on goal.
Yeah.
Their second shot in the entire game went in, and their fourth shot went in. And there was a period of almost 15 minutes where St. Louis did not get a shot on goal.
Which is incredible.
Incredible. It reminds me a little bit, and this is dating myself quite badly, but New Year's Eve 1975-76, where the Montreal Canadiens played Team Russia. Mm-hmm. Ken Dryden was in net for Montreal, and Montreal was all over the Russians, all over them. I think the game ended in a 3-3 tie, if I'm not mistaken. But Ken Dryden only faced literally a dozen shots. But he was so tired of standing around doing nothing that when the puck did come down in his end, And he was not as good as he usually would be if he was busy working. And Tuukka Rask had a bit of that syndrome as well. He wasn't busy. They only had 20 shots in the whole game.
I saw a lot of people blaming Rask for the loss. I don't blame Rask. I thought that maybe he even should have won the Conn Smythe or something like that. He had a tremendous playoffs and a tremendous year. Statistically, unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I don't blame him in any way.
Not
I
a
thought he
bit.
was tremendous.
Not a bit. He was, I think, screened, or there's a bit of a deflection on the first goal.
Yes,
and it went
was.
5-hole.
Yep.
On the second goal, I just think that's entirely the responsibility of Marchand and the non-change or the bad blow through the blue line there. After that, you can't blame Rask for whatever's going to happen, and it happened. So I agree with you. I think Rask played as good a game as he could play. He just wasn't supported as much as he should have been. And it's not unheard of for a player on the losing team to get the Conn Smythe. That has happened in the past. It's unusual, but it's not impossible. So had they given it to Rask, that would have been not only a great credit to Tuukka Rask, but also a great credit to the St. Louis Blues. When you play well enough to give the opposing team's goalie the Conn Smythe and you still win the cup, that says a lot about your team.
Yeah.
So that would have been a neat way to tie it up with a bow and package it all into one little box there. But I'm okay with the way it went. O'Reilly's a fantastic player, and his arrival on the team changed the team to a large extent. It made the team into the team it is today, and now they're going to hoist the cup. It's a fantastic sports story. It's a fantastic hockey story, and it ended as good as it could for a fan of neither team necessarily, but I wanted St. Louis to win.
And I believe he tied the record for most games played in a season because he played all 82 games in the regular season, and he played all the playoff games. And I think whatever that number was, 112 or whatever it was, tied the record for the most games played in a season.
I suppose when you go to 7 games a lot, that's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And you've only got 4 series, so 28 games plus 8. The most you can play is 28 games in the playoffs. Absolutely, right? Yeah. So 28 and 82 is 110.
I don't know. You're the math whiz, not me.
Yeah, 110.
Anyways, one of the series didn't go to Game 7. It was the Winnipeg series didn't go to Game 7.
So well over 100, put it that way.
Yeah. And if you look at St. Louis, I mean, on the power play, they were 16.3%, which is not good. On the penalty kill, they were 75.3 or 75.5, something like that. Not that great.
No.
So St. Louis didn't win this game with special teams. No. They won it with good defensive hockey, good 5-on-5 play.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I don't really have anything else to say. I'm pretty happy for St. Louis.
I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled for them. As a kid, seeing St. Louis enter the league, I remember before St. Louis was there. Mm-hmm. And when they came into the league, seeing hockey cards coming in my decks for brand new teams and brand new players, and I'm 7 and 8 years old, and I'm now trading hockey cards of Norm Ullman and Glenn Sather wearing that jersey. The Plager brothers, great history of that team, and so many great players like Brett Hull have gone through that team and not put the silver over their head. And to have this group of guys do it, it's just fantastic.
And I think we might be a little silly not to mention the history behind these two teams, because obviously the famous Bobby Orr goal that was scored back in the day against St. Louis. Now St. Louis has a bit of revenge all these years ago from those finals from that specific year. So
what goes around eventually, if you live long enough, comes around.
Yeah, exactly. So really good playoffs. I'm super excited for next year to come. Definitely, admittedly relieved that hockey's over and I can take a little bit of a break. I just felt like there wasn't really that much to talk about, and I was kind of getting annoyed. Like, there's just like the same playoff games over and over again, and then now there's a break. We've got signings, we've got free agency, we've got the draft coming up, we've got the NHL awards. There's all kinds of exciting things to talk about. There's going to be some fun trades. Mm-hmm. So throughout the offseason, we could talk about that stuff. Plus, we'll do some fun videos. Like, I think I've got like 9 videos already recorded with Kale of some logo rankings and stuff. We'll continue to do the odd podcast. We're going to do it this weekend, which will be mostly hockey related. And then the following weekend, there'll be Havaniak, our other podcast, on the second channel with Kale and I. And then, or maybe we'll do your trip recap that weekend, and I'll push the Kale one back the weekend after that.
Well, that weekend you're going to be in Fredericton, I believe.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I'm going to Fredericton not this weekend coming, but next weekend. So I will be doing a podcast with Jason and potentially Justin if he is available. So yeah, there should be a podcast, I guess, for the next 4 weeks coming. So which was not the plan, but
Whoa.
Good news, I guess, for people who like it. But thanks guys for watching. I really appreciate it. If you're new to this channel and maybe this is your first video, hope you can hit the subscribe button down below. We're coming up on 800 episodes on this channel and close to 900 videos total with all the episodes plus the podcast plus a few others. So yeah, we're getting close to that 1,000 mark. So if you're new to the channel, there's definitely lots of content to explore on this channel. Thanks for joining me. Welcome back to Canada.
It's great to be back, I tell you.
And we'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.